Please forgive the get up and the noise, but this message is too important not to share. My life is chaos, and I've learned what it is to be crazy, and I've seen the consequences of it. But a couple years ago, I had an experience where I discovered, all on my own, without proselytation or being taught, I discovered Aztec non-duality, and I experienced non-existence. I experienced oneness with everything, and I experienced consciousness as a fast food drive-through sign, which makes no sense, but it will, so allow me to explain. I smoked Salvia Divinorum alone, like I shouldn't have, and I experienced several things. Life-changing things. I experienced non-existence. Not just blackness, just a void of nothingness. No thoughts, no notions, no ideas. Nothingness. And then I experienced an eternity of being woven into the existence of reality. And that was very strange because it didn't make sense. I didn't experience myself as a human being, my identity, and it felt like forever. I also experienced consciousness inside of a physical, non-inanimate object. I experienced consciousness inside a fast food drive-through sign, which sounds ridiculous, and it is. It's fucking ridiculous, you know? I mean, yes, you get to hear it, but imagine experiencing it firsthand. And then I came down from the Salvia trip where I heard myself screaming for help in the third person, which it sounds impossible, but imagine yourself, a copy of yourself, somewhere else near you, screaming like it's the end of the world, asking for help. And my consciousness was in a void. And I began to hear my body scream. And it didn't make sense. I was like, what do you mean? What do you mean help? And slowly my vision returned and I fell out of my bed. And I ended up on the floor, you know, my palms were on the floor. It could have been a lot worse. I could have hit any number of objects in my room, but my cat was just a couple feet away from me on the floor, staring at me like I was stupid or weird. And I began to laugh. I began to laugh hysterically. Because I couldn't explain or even comprehend what just happened. And I spent weeks just sitting in the bath thinking about what happened. And I started to make sense of it. I started to make sense of this oneness that I felt with everything. I started to make sense of the nothingness. And when I tried to comprehend the existing as a drive-through sign, I just took it literally that inanimate objects are conscious. And you know, that sounds ridiculous. You could say whatever you want, and I understand the criticism and speculation. But there is this notion in science that's gaining traction. It's called panpsychism. Excuse me. And it's the notion that consciousness itself is fundamental to reality. And so I began searching these notions online. The specific way of oneness and what I felt. And I discovered this ancient religion, Aztec non-duality. And the more I read, the more I felt at home, like someone else had experienced what I experienced. And I discovered the notion of Teotl, or, if I'm going to be more proper, Teotl. And, I'm already indigenous, so it's, I've always had this weird New Age kind of view about the world, but I always felt separate from everyone because I wasn't black, I wasn't white. No one talked about the indigenous people. No one was screaming in the streets about laws for the indigenous people. But now that I've discovered non-duality, I see how silly this whole dance of humanity is. This notion that anyone is different from another just because of their religion, creed, race, their brand preferences. We've got people who are staunchly Android, staunchly iPhone, etc. The list goes on. I'm sure you can imagine shit in your own life. And when I started taking things literally, this oneness, there was a bit of sadness because things are pretty shitty in the world. But then, there are moments when I'm just sitting outside and just looking at the clouds, looking at the plants, blowing in the breeze. I'll see birds and animals, and it is so perfect in that moment when I escape my humanity. And then when I look inward, I feel one with everyone. And I'm saddened by this tribalism because, yes, it could be so much better. But I also learned that the only way to honor this oneness is to be authentic in yourself. And that doesn't mean you have to accept how shitty of a person you are. If you are shitty, I'm not trying to accuse you. Whatever flaws that you have, that doesn't mean you have to change it. If you want to, you can. And if you want to, you should. But this oneness is only abstractly true in that you are part of everything, and everything is part of you. And when you love another, you love yourself. And it's very difficult for a normal human being to comprehend this idea that, self versus other, that I understand that makes no sense for the average person, and I accept that. But what I would like you to understand is you and everything you see and experience, it's not an accident. It's necessary. It is the whole reason for existence. And I personally have started to call what I see the fractal of reality. How things come to be, whether it's by a person or weather or animals, joint efforts, solo efforts, whether it's government or clubs or gangs, whether it's murder, rape, or, someone being saved on a stretcher in a hospital or on the way to the hospital, whether it's supernova, it is all necessary in that it's part of reality. It's necessary, and it happens because it can. And it all comes back to Teotl. Teotl, this ever-changing, ever-regenerating force in everything. Your body and your mind is a part of everything. And it all only works because we're here. And I can't simplify it any more than that. There's an ineffable quality to what I've experienced and the truth that I've seen. And some people would call Teotl God. I think that's somewhat inaccurate. But I have this reverence for everything. You know, and it sounds silly, but I look at the trash that I'm discarding. You know, the other day there was a slug in my neighborhood, and I knew if any of the pets in this neighborhood had eaten that slug, they likely would have died from parasites. So I almost cried, you know, and it sounds really silly. But I took a second to revere it, and then I stomped the shit out of it. I absolutely fucking destroyed this slug. And in the morning it was gone, and I knew that birds had come and eaten the slug. So that's me participating in Teotl. This, you know, I'm a cog in the machine. And that doesn't mean that I'm not important. The very fact that I exist is enough justification to assert my existence, my personhood, my part in everything. And Teotl, is where jealousy dies, because you look at other people and the things that they achieve, and you realize that you're part of it. Everything is necessary, good and bad. The polar opposites must exist. They must. And a utopia is impossible, because there are opposing ideas and opposing creeds and religions and cultures that must exist, and the fact that they do means that they're incompatible. I can't do two hand motions because I'm holding my phone, sorry. But they can't mesh together because they differ so much. And it's really difficult for me to explain, but it's something that is so true to me that I can't ignore it. It's like looking at a statue. The statue exists. You can't say it doesn't because it's right fucking there. And that's how the truth of Teotl is to me. I cannot in good conscience ignore what I've experienced and seen. And I can't help but notice the fact that everyone is completely ignorant of this truth. And that's the purpose of this video. You know, and I understand that some people are gonna laugh. Some people are gonna call me a new age weirdo. And that's fine, really. It doesn't bother me now, because, like I said, the truth of Teotl, it's apparent to me. That's really it. There's nothing else to really say. But just know that you are necessary. It's okay that you exist. It's okay you've made mistakes. That's part of it all. So just do the best you can, do what you think is right, and keep going. Because you're part of the world. You have to be here. And I'm really glad that you are. Oma Teot.